Right.
This computer.
Clap one on three. One, two, three. What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of True Crime and Cocktails. We're so glad that you're here. As always, I am your host, Lauren Ash, and as always, I am joined by my co-hostess with the mostess, Christy Oxborrow. How you feeling?
I'm doing great.
Great.
Yeah. That seemed very like I had to look for a word. I'm doing great. You
That's
know?
wonderful.
It
It's
is what it
wonderful.
is.
I'm also great. Because my headline news
Yeah.
is I consulted a pet psychic about Bean.
hmm That there's nothing you could say that would make more sense for
Yep.
you than
Yep.
what you've just said.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I saved this for the record, folks. Christy doesn't know anything about this, so I'm very excited to share it
Of
with all
course.
of you at the same time. Um, so I wrote down a little list of a few things that I wanted to know about, and this is a phone call, and this is a woman who I've seen advertised on TikTok, not from her. People just have had sessions with her and
Sure.
posted about her because they were so good. So So I
hmm
wrote down a couple questions because I didn't know how it was going to go. I didn't know if it was like we have a conversation, I ask questions, or if she's just giving me info. I don't know.
hmm
But then
How
lo
does
and
she, if I may, how does she with the dog?
she didn't get into that. She said it would take me a long time to explain to you how I do what I do. That's what she said.
Fair enough.
And I let that go.
Got it. hmm
Let that go. So so the big question, the number one question on my list was why is she eating poop?
And this is for the dog, not the psychic?
Thank you very much.
Of
This is my question for
course.
Bean
Of
because
course.
she channels the animal through her. So she'll kind of like she'll tell you
Mhm.
what the animal is saying and whatnot. Um, and all I've provided with ahead of time is a photo, a full frontal color photo. That's it.
Thank you for full frontal, by the way.
Well, I guess full length would have been a better way of putting it. I guess her just not her face, not a headshot, whole full body,
Oh, needs a full body.
full
Got it.
body.
hmm
And so we get on the phone. And there's a couple seconds of small talk, whatever. And then she's like, "Oh, Bean, she's so lovely." Um, and then she kind of said like, I'm not gonna get into how I do this, like it just would take too much time or whatever." And she goes, "Okay." The first thing she said to me is, "I don't eat poop." I was like, I burst into laughter because I was like, that's the first thing that was on my list, and that's the first thing she's addressing. And I said, "Oh, on the contrary." And she goes, "Oh, no, to be clear," she's like, "I'm fairly certain she's trying to cover for herself."
So dogs lie.
Well, I think it's like she's like, "I'm not eating poop. I'm not eating poop."
Mhm.
Um, so that I was like, I'm in. All
Of
right.
course.
So then she goes, she's been having an upset stomach the past 2 days. She absolutely was. She had a little throw up. She had some diarrhea. So she's on, and she goes, "So you changed her diet?" I said, "Yeah, she's on a bland diet right now." She's like, "Yeah." And then she had suggested like a home remedy to help with that. Um, my second question on the list
hmm
was, and keep in mind, I'm not asking these questions. I'm not saying them.
Right. They're just questions on your list,
They're
but
questions
she
on my
doesn't
list.
know your list.
Exactly. My second question is, what was her life before me?
Mm.
And she goes, "Was she adopted and then returned before you?" Which she was. And I said, "Yeah." And she goes, "Yeah, when you took her, she didn't know where she was going. She just keeps saying, 'My heart was beating so fast. My heart was beating so fast.'"
Oh.
And I was like, that's so heartbreaking and feels like Bean. Um, and she goes, "Yeah, she wasn't sure where she was going and she was really nervous, but
Sure.
she wants you to know that she feels safe and that you're her person." And I was like,
Oh, of
"Listen, I don't care if that's made up or not. That's just lovely." So I'm like, "Yes, of course."
course.
Then she goes, "She feels things very deeply." She feels her feelings very deeply. And she said, I want to ask her about whether she had litters, but she said, I don't want to upset her. She's like, I'm just getting the vibe that I shouldn't ask her. And I was like, this, this is
Wow.
so sad. This is so sad. Um, but anyway, I was like, I love that she's also trying to respect Bean's emotional boundaries.
Of
Because by the way, I
course.
don't think I need to explain to any of you, the only human or slash being that is as
Mm.
emotional as me is Bean.
Yeah, that
So
makes
then
sense.
she goes, she wants you to know that the last time you left, she had a meltdown. You left for a while. I said, well, I was away for 10 days. She goes, yeah, internally, she was melting down. Internally. Because
Eternally.
a friend of the podcast, Erin Conway, was minding her and she was like, she was fine. And I was like, right, but this is apparently her internal emotional journey. Anyway, and then
Hmm.
out of
Hmm.
nowhere, she goes, she also wants you to know she can't swim and she hates the water. Bean cannot swim and does hate the water. There was one time I took her in the pool to try when I first adopted her to be like,
Of
hey, she
course.
freaked out. And now anytime we go out in the back, she side eyes me. She bananas away from the pool.
She
And if we're
wants to
in the
make sure
pool,
you're not getting near there. Got
if
it.
we're in, yes, if I'm in the pool, she is a million miles away, just like like one eye on me. So at this point, I'm in.
You're all in. Yeah.
I'm all in. I mean,
Hmm.
wouldn't you be?
Yeah. Yeah, I get that.
These were the final messages from Bean. Are you ever getting me another dog?
She does have the energy of she'd like a dog that would play with her. Yeah.
Which leads to, can you please play with me at least 10 minutes a day? Which I do. And she wanted me to know how much she loves me
Oh,
and that she feels I'm her person.
that's beautiful.
How wonderful. Again, I don't give to folks, I don't care if it's bullshit. Here's the thing. I don't care.
Yeah.
It's beautiful. And by the way, I don't think that she's saying she loves you. Who fucking knows? Although, I mean, I feel like that's something Bean would say. But my point is the poop, the details of the life before me, knowing that she had gone on a trial adoption and then was returned. And
Sure.
then that's the source of her anxiety.
Mm.
Because then she's like, I didn't know who you were. I didn't know where we were going. I was like, that is completely fair. And the swimming, and the fact that she knew that her stomach was upset. I was like, this is crazy. Like, this is too many things that there is no way this woman could possibly know. So then
Sure.
she said, do you want me to communicate anything to her? And
It
I said,
goes the other way.
goes the other way.
Fascinating.
So then
Okay.
I said, tell her that I love her to the ends of the earth. Here I go. And I said, please tell her I'll always come back, that I'm never leaving her. And she
Oh.
goes, I'm going to let her know. Here's the other detail. Now,
Hmm.
Bean is always in my lap. Like 99% of the time when we're recording these podcasts, or I'm,
Sure.
this was a phone call, but I was sitting in my podcast chair. If I'm in this chair, she's on my lap.
Yeah.
While I was talking to this woman, I'm not kidding. She's napping, as she always does, in my lap, but she started to do the dream twitch.
Weird.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Long story short, to quote none other than hit musical artist The Monkees. Now I'm a believer.
I didn't know if you were gonna go with the monkeys, Smash Mouth, or just the cinematic adventure that is Shrek. I
Of
didn't know
course.
which one you'd go with, but yeah, I get that. I get that. And also, I mean, I get it for anyone that's like, okay, but I'll say it. Who's getting hurt?
No one's getting hurt. No one's getting hurt. And to me, the fact that the top two things I had on my, well, actually, the three things, because I wanted to ask her about travel, and she did bring up like you had been away.
Right?
Yeah. Now, I guess if we want to be really skeptical, she could have gone on my social media, but she never would have known about the poop. I've never talked about unless she's gone deep in the like, I think I've talked about it on the podcast, but like, I don't think that this woman is like, I don't think she listened to 100 episodes of a podcast to try and grift me. You know what I mean? So that she
Oh,
couldn't possibly know. She couldn't possibly know that her stomach was upset and that it had only been for 2 days. And she couldn't have
sure.
possibly known that she was out on an adoption trial and returned.
That's also true.
Right? So
I,
to me, those are three things that prove to me that she's not full of shit. And then to that, I would say I'm just happy that hopefully she was able to communicate my message.
oh, I'm sure she was. If she can
Yeah.
get it from, she can get it too. I don't like how I
Again,
worded that.
however, again, she didn't have the time to explain it to me. And again, I didn't ask. It's not my
hmm
business.
hmm Here's the thing. I could never, because I guarantee those sassy little cats that I have, there's gonna be some sort of attitude that I'm like, I don't want to talk about it. Like it was like you'll also need to bring in a pet therapist because they're gonna tell me that one of those cats has said something negative and I'm gonna take it badly. And
But here's the thing, but maybe not. Maybe when you talk to them in their heart of hearts, maybe they're going to be like, I'm really grateful for her.
oh God, I wouldn't buy it for a second. Again, I have watched those cats look at me, walk past, like look at me while I'm like calling them and being like, hey, come sit with me, I'll pet you, whatever. Look me in my eye and then walk past and go sit with my husband, who wasn't even acknowledging them.
Listen, this is like when Fox, God rest his soul, used to stare me in the eyes
Oh,
while kissing another person. Like, I get it.
yeah. Oh, like that was next level.
Yeah.
Next level. I remember my first side eye.
Yeah. Oh, he was the king of the side eye.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
only the only one that can rival that is being outside when I'm in the pool.
Sure.
And
Sure.
she is hidden under a
Mm,
table, she doesn't
mhm.
even like being in the backyard if we're in the pool. She loves sitting in the backyard. If we're in the pool, she's like, I'll go inside. She hates the water. So it was also, that's another detail that how could she possibly know that?
I mean, yeah, look, I'm not poo-pooing this lady. It gave you a good moment, so I'm like, there, what's again? Who got hurt?
Yeah, because I consulted another pet psychic after Peaches passed,
Mm,
and she was telling us about our past lives together, telling me about our past lives together. Um, and then in throughout different lifetimes, we were different things.
sure.
So there was one where it's like she was a horse and I was like her, like a stable gal and stuff like that, she and I had been through many lifetimes together. That one, there was nothing to hold on to in terms of like proof, right?
Sure.
It was just like, this is what your story is. And it was lovely. And I was in deep grief and mourning, and it gave me peace and made me feel nice. And so that was worth every
Sure.
penny. And she did a wonderful job. And I want to believe that we have all these lifetimes together.
Of
This
course.
is a little different because this one, it was like there was just so many pieces of proof that she was right. Now, and then I guess the only thing to extrapolate further out of that is that I just have to hope that she was able to communicate the message I asked her to. And then again, worth every penny.
I mean, so are you saying you would use this particular woman's service again?
Yes, I
Fair
would
enough.
consult her again. I'm thinking about doing her for Sharky.
I mean, it's the fact that you said extrapolate
Yeah,
with like in the most earnest way. Again, I just don't see this as anything but positive.
yeah. Listen, I was excited to share, and like I said, I saved it for the podcast because I was like, oh, I could tell her this ahead of time, and then I was like, no, I think the people will like this story. I think that, I think we've got a fair amount of molders in our listenership.
Oh, sure.
We got a fair amount of woo woos in our listenership.
Sure.
And then the ones who are neither of those things are damn supportive. So I feel like this is a no-brainer,
You're right.
you know?
You're right. It's top to tails support, whether there's belief or not. Still going to be support.
I'd say nose to tails.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
You're so, you're so welcome.
She's always on.
Here's the
Always on. You
thing.
can't turn it
I
off.
can't turn it off. Yeah.
Yeah, I like that
Anyway,
a
that's
lot.
my big news.
I like that a lot.
Yeah.
Uh, I'm like, oh, do I really have anything? No. Um, well, I have been. You know how for years I'm always like, well, I need to take more breaks.
Yep.
That's always been a big thing for me. So I've been trying it, and that was again my New Year's resolution for 2026. And then I didn't quite get there. And then we took a small chunk of time off while you were abroad.
Mm,
And I was like, okay, I'm gonna focus on just doing whatever. And since we've come back from that, so I'm talking like literally like 2 weeks, 2, 3 weeks at the most. I've been trying to take more breaks. I'm trying to do like I'm seeing if I can get away with like weekends off.
mm,
I randomly, I'll just be like, I guess I'm just putting on a movie.
yeah.
I've watched so many movies just randomly in the afternoon in the last like few weeks. The other day, Mrs. Doubtfire. And I'm going to tell you this. Did I recite the entirety of his Pudgy the Bird bit at the very opening? I did. I haven't seen the movie in years, but it's still in there.
Oh, yeah.
Don't smoke. Like that whole scene. Yeah. Did I? Yes. Um, did I come out of that saying I'm pretty sure my favorite character in that entire movie is his brother Jack?
Mm,
Like when he says, I want you to make me a woman, and he goes, oh, honey, I'm so happy.
yeah.
What a gift. What a gift he is. And then when he's talking about like going through the different stages of makeup, and then he's like, I think it's Joan Collins, he suggests, and then he goes, I don't think I have the strength.
Yeah.
I'm like, it just cracks me up. But here's the thing of it. First of all, I forgot that's a long movie. That's like just
Yeah.
over 2 hours. And I watched this repeatedly as a child. And of course, as a child, you're like, why is Sally Field so mean? He's just trying to be fun, all of this. And then you become an adult and you go, I get it now. He was never being serious, all of these things. But you're still like, he's still a fun guy. So but you can see both sides once you
Yeah.
become an adult. And then you get a little older and you watch the movie again and you realize that she has her moment. She snaps. She says, I want a divorce.
Yep.
They immediately are in court over, custody, that sort of thing. And he's given 90 days to, job, place for the kids, all of this, and then they'll see about joint custody. Otherwise, for now, custody goes to her. He gets to see the kids like once a week or something. Okay, so in this moment, I'm like, oh, you feel bad for him, but I'm like, God, this whole thing happens in like 90 days, and then of course she brings in another man,
Hmm.
a very incredibly charming Pierce Brosnan comes in, and suddenly it's like they're seeing each other slightly, and then she's like introducing him to the kids, and he's spending time with the kids, and I'm like, all of this in 90 days from your divorce, that feels wild. And then you learn it wasn't in 90 days because, yeah, I'm spoiling a movie from over 30 years ago. When he gets caught as Mrs. Doubtfire and they go back to court early, you find out it's only been a month. A month. Their marriage wasn't even cold. And she's already like, how's your father, Pierce Brosnan? How's it going? Meet my children. We should get drinks. Like, I was shook. I had no idea that happened so
Yeah,
fast.
she did move on pretty fast. You're
Yeah.
not wrong.
And then, so during this most recent viewing, I was a little bit taken aback
Hmm.
with the choices that Miranda Hillard made. And then I had a moment of like, but Daniel, aka Robin Williams, um, while he's Mrs. Doubtfire, he learns how to cook. He's like learning how to like clean up and like actually take care of the children in a way that's not just being the fun parent. And he gets kind of smug about it, when she comes to his apartment one day and she sees it's clean for like the first time ever. And she's like, "Did you hire someone?" He's like, "I actually did it myself." And I'm like, the fact that it took you a divorce and dressing up as an old woman to go into that home to actually clean that home and be a productive member of that home is disgusting, Daniel. She said, and I know I'm starting to sound like Sally Field, but the point is, I was team him. I was on board. And then I was like, oh, but now I'm like, oh my God. She said he was in and out of work for so long. And then she would have to go and work and come home, and she was stuck cooking, cleaning, dealing with homework, all of the things he was too fun to do.
Yeah.
And now he had to like learn to do it. And he's like, "Oh, I'm so tired." And it's like, I know. How do you think she feels? Well, no wonder she's trying to get with Pierce Brosnan. He lives in a building with a big pool. Bean would hate it.
You're gonna love
Hmm.
what I'm honing in on.
Yeah.
2 hours is a long movie. I
Um,
mean, I wouldn't call it a short movie, but I'm thinking about
no.
like the Titanics, the Bravehearts,
Oh,
you
yeah.
know?
Oh, I mean, it depends. To me, 2 hours seems lengthy, but I just think more like I can't believe I sat through that over and over and over again as a kid for that length of time. I guess I didn't have to worry about my attention span. I guess I was just always locked in when the
Mm,
TV was on. I was like, there she is. That's my love. Just crank her on and I'll watch whatever it is. Um, but yeah, I guess apparently 2 hours, even though movies now typically tend to be almost three.
yeah.
For some reason, yeah, 2 hours. I'm like, whoo,
Well, I mean,
who's got
not
time?
all movies tend to be 3 hours.
No, but a lot of them nowadays are longer than they used to be. But this just surprised me because when I think of like 90s movies, I'm like, oh, 90 minutes.
Mm,
And I had like a chunk of time and I was like, oh, I'll sit down and watch this. And I had to like stop it partway through and then pick it up the next day because I'm like, I don't have the time to sit for the full 2 hours.
right.
But thank God I needed that break because I got angry. I was like, we're just seeing so much into their marriage that I never really picked up on.
Yeah.
No, well,
Well,
I didn't, I didn't think, I didn't think I was going to get annoyed with it. But again, I'll say it. Still a great movie. Are there moments that, you know, certain things that were said or moments that happened that shouldn't have in today's day? Yeah.
of course.
But at the
Of
same
course.
time, still, still a fantastic movie.
Oh, listen.
He nails
So
it.
much heart.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And the moment where it's revealed, yeah, I'm not done spoiling. Um, the moment it's revealed that it's him and the two older kids find out, the daughter does this like scream in a way that I'm like, she seems genuinely shocked. So I was like, that was fantastic acting. I'm so sad that she like stepped away from Hollywood because I'm like, that moment, I'm like, I really believed that she was shocked. There was just a scream in her voice that I was like, good for her.
Yeah.
I'm just really supportive of those kids, I guess. I don't know.
I mean, listen, Matthew Lawrence did cheat on Cheryl Burke and broke her heart in real life. But now he's with Chili.
Who's a bit controversial now.
Is she?
Yeah,
What's going on with Chili?
it just came out that she voted for
She
so
did.
she did, and
Chili?
she gave money to his campaign multiple times.
So is Matthew Lawrence also on that train?
I'm worried. I'm worried that that's part of
Just didn't expect it from Chili. I mean, I don't know.
nobody did, and right now TLC, Salt and Pepper, and En Vogue are doing planning this huge tour, and people are not happy about it.
People are reacting.
People are reacting. Yeah. And it also came out she shared like I think it was a racist video about uh was it Michelle Obama or Kamala Harris or something?
Chili.
Like, yeah, yeah,
Huh.
I know. She's
Huh.
tried to walk it back. She deleted the share.
Sure.
She did an interview saying she didn't mean to. She's not good with technology. The share button's right next to the button she meant to use, like all of these kinds of things. But people are like, well, I mean, that doesn't excuse the donations you gave his campaign multiple times. But yeah. So it's tough. As soon as you hear that, that my first instinct was, does that mean he is as well? And then what about the brothers?
Are all the brothers? Well, listen, then own it. Then they should own it.
Yeah, that I mean, I don't think she ever would have said anything publicly if people hadn't have caught it.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me it's like I think for me it's just yeah, just own it. Like if that's who you
Yeah.
are, then just own it.
Sure. Yeah. Oh yeah, she doesn't like that it's been found.
Yeah.
And she's trying to walk it back from last I heard.
So she's saying that she's not MAGA. She doesn't support the policies. She was supporting causes related to veteran support and anti-human trafficking. She didn't read the fine print of the donations. That's what she's saying. So this is suggesting that she didn't give to his campaign. She gave to some charities that are aligned.
Mm.
But where there's smoke, there's fire.
It's yeah, it's tough. It's tough. And now so many people are upset and they don't want to go to the tour if she's going to be there, but then people are like, well, that's part of the reason I wanted to go was because they were going to be there. And yeah, I was just very surprised.
Yeah.
But yeah, it seems like damage control is happening
Yeah.
right now.
Well, listen, you never know. Life is like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get
That's true.
unless you're a world-renowned pet psychic.
That is that is true. And I'll say, speaking of you never know what you're going to get.
Yeah.
This this is just me laughing at myself. So the newest Mario movie came out. And my youngest, the second he heard it was coming out, he's like, "Well, I want to go." And so I was like, "We don't theater very often." But I'm like, "Okay, if you want to go, you want to go." And we asked the middle one and he's like, "Yeah, I want to go." And then our oldest was coming to town that weekend, so we were like, "Hey, we're going to go to this movie tomorrow." Or we were going to go a day before he was coming, but we were like, "If you're interested, we'll wait and go when you're home." He's like, "Yeah, I'll come." So we're like, oh, great. All five of us are going to the movies. Well, at the last minute, my middle one went, well, actually, I'm not going to go anymore because I'm going to go next week with a friend. And we were like, does your friend just want to come with us? And then he's like, well, I'll find out. Well, yep, the friend will come with us. I'm like, that makes six. And we're like, well, the youngest should be able to bring a friend. So we're like, let's find out. And so it ends up seven of us. We have to take separate vehicles because we don't have enough space and we have to go to two separate directions in town to pick up each of these children to take. So I'm with the youngest and we go pick up the friend, ship it all the way to the theater. And I'm just making conversation. And I'm just like, hey, so like, I'm like, oh, you excited to see the movie? He's like, actually, I went yesterday. And I was like, oh, he's like, yeah, at a birthday party. I just really wanted to see it again. And I was like, understood. And this was like a Saturday. And he's like, I also got invited to go see it Monday. And I was like, it's so good. You'll go see it three times. He's like, yeah. And I was like, okay, great. So we're driving there. And then he's like, oh, the and that my youngest was like, I'm just really excited about Yoshi because he really loves Yoshi. And his friend goes, "Oh, there is this funny moment. No, I'm not going to spoil it for you." And I was like, I'm so charmed. These 10-year-olds having this conversation. So we get to the theater. My husband did paid for tickets on an app so we could pick our seats in advance. And there just happened to be like a seat on either side of us that we ended up getting both of those seats for these other kids. Fine. So we've got the tickets. I'm like, now we just have to figure out everyone's food order, get in line, get the food order. Well, while we're in line, now at the Cineplex, they've got like a big sort of like just a little stand. They've got squishmallows. They've got
What?
and the squishmallows half the time aren't related to the movies. They're just here's squishmallows. There's also like a plush popcorn in a bucket. There's a plush movie reel. There's like all these things. There's like blind boxes. There's just blankets. So many things. So I get overwhelmed.
Yeah.
And I'm immediately like, well, I have to do something. And there's this section that's blind boxes from this Mario movie, and they're the little stars. They're called Lumas, and there are all these. You can get all these different colors. I can't remember how many. There was like 5 or 6 of them, and then all each one was a different color, had a little different expression on its face, and then there was a mystery one, and I was like, "We're gonna need." So I go to the. I'm like, obviously, automatically, I'm getting one for me, one for the two youngest kids. I'm gonna go check in and see if the middle two want. So I go over and my kid is like, absolutely, he'll take one. And the other kid was like, I'm good, thanks. That was like more than fair. So I end up buying 4 of these things. Fine. Stick them in my purse after I get them. Then they sit in my purse the whole time. We get to the parking lot after. And I was like, so how'd you guys like the movie? Whatever. And I was getting ready to go. And I tossed them each one of those boxes. And I was just like, all like, there you go. Like feeling like the coolest person on the planet because they had no idea these things were coming. They tear it open, they get the same one. And I was like, oof, okay, okay. But I'm like, then no fighting over it, right? Great. And the friend just goes, does this very dramatic, like, no, because he wanted a very specific color and he didn't get it. I'm a pleaser. So I tossed one of the other ones in the back and I went, maybe that'll be it. Nope. Third one, same one. All 3 the same. And so in that moment, I had a choice to make. Do I just go, ah, nuts, and move on? Or
Or do you
do
go
I,
back in and buy more?
or do I give him the last box I had that was going to be mine and be like, here, you open this in the hopes. And then I'm like, I'll just take whatever one is extra.
Don't do it. It's going to be the secret.
I tossed it back there.
No.
It, it was the secret.
Ah,
Do you want to know what the secret was?
yeah.
It was a baby one that had a little soother in its mouth.
Oh, Christy.
I almost crashed the car. Like in that moment, like at this point, I'm driving home and he went, "Oh, it's a baby one." And I was like, there wasn't a baby one on the box. Oh my God, it was the secret. Oh my God, that was mine. Christy, what have you done? And so I was like, oh, that's fun.
Did you get it back?
No, we
Oh,
get to the house and they had like they like tore the boxes to like throw pieces at each other. They were very giggling. They had a great time. We got to his house. He took his two and said
two.
thanks.
I thought the whole point was that he was trading.
Yeah, I just let him take the two. And then we got to the house and my kid helped me clean up the scraps from the back seat and him and his brother each got one of the same. And I, but I did say when we dropped the kid off, I was like, we have 2 choices. One, we go home, we just accept which one we got. Two, we drive back to that theater and we get more of them and then we go home. And he was like, let's just go home. I've looked for these things online. They seem to only sell them at the theater.
Everything about this is a nightmare.
It was just the most ridiculous thing in the world. I'm like, what are the odds? What are the odds?
Well, there's a viral TikTok that's going around. I don't know if you've seen it.
Mm,
And it was a mother who took her daughter and her daughter's friend to a Five Below, which is like a
sure.
dollar store, but it's five and below, $5 and below. And they got the viral
Oh, that dumpling thing,
dumpling.
right?
And
Yeah.
then apparently ahead of time, she had said to the friend, if you get the glitter one, we're keeping it. And so
And then
they
the
open
friend
them.
got the
Of course,
glitter.
the friend gets the glitter one, and she was like, "That you know the deal." And so she had to give it to the mother. And people have come for this woman.
I
And I'm
bet.
not saying that those people are wrong. All I'm saying is this is what the story reminded me of, where I was like,
Mm.
"
Oh,
don't tell me that he pulled the secret. That's a
he
nightmare."
he did, and it's just so funny that he had no idea and also did not care. Um, but I could never have kids opening blind boxes and be like, just so you know, if you get this specific one, you don't get to keep it. It's like that mother that invited a bunch of kids to her kids' party at Build-A-Bear, and they all built the bear, their own specific bear and whatever. And at the very end, she was like, okay, well, give them to the birthday girl.
Yeah, that was weird.
And people were like, what? I thought they were for the kids. She's like, why would I do that? And it's like, I don't, why would you invite a bunch of like 8-year-olds to build a bear thinking they don't get to keep the bear? Was a
Listen,
choice.
I'm sure it's all some sort of childhood trauma, you know?
Look, if nothing else, I'm hoping that that child will one day grow up and be like, I went and saw this movie and then I got these blind boxes in the car and then I had like a box cardboard fight with my best friend. Like I'm hoping that's going to be like a beautiful moment. I'm not saying maybe a core memory, but like that's going to be something beautiful. So I was just
I
like,
hope that too. And I
take
hope
your
that he
secret.
doesn't put that secret in the trash.
Oh, I'm already like, check the theater hours and maybe go in and just get more of those
I really
just
was
to be sure.
very, very, I mean, that was where I saw it going.
Yeah, I actually thought I did debate about just dropping him off at home and circling back, but now I'm just like, all right. Yeah, I guess I have to go back because I thought at first I'm like, oh, I'll find some online somewhere. I can't find them anywhere.
They're plush.
Yeah, they're like a little plush
I don't
star.
want to tell you how much that secret is selling for.
Well, and that's the joke. I wouldn't have sold it, but I would have kept it.
I think it would have made sense for
Um,
him to get to choose. You choose one of them. You're too generous.
oh God, I would have bought if I had bought like 10 of them, I would have let him keep however many he wanted. That's just
Do
okay,
you want me to tell
Mario,
you how much they're
Luma.
selling for?
Oh, give the people a thrill.
$100.
Jesus Christ. That's the thing. Like, oh, weird. Oh, yeah. No, these are them. Like, do you see how cute that little baby one is?
It's really cute. Okay, I found one for 55.
Good
That's
God.
the cheapest that it's selling for. And that's American. That's US dollars.
Again, I mean, and this is going to be the joke. I'm going to go there. I'm going to go, fine. I'm going to do it this weekend. And I'm going to walk in there and they're going to be sold out.
Yep, or you're gonna
And
buy 10 of them and none of them are the secret.
I'm going to buy 10 of them. And then I'm going to find out they're all the same color of the one we already have.
Yeah.
It's just the joke of my life. But I
Yeah.
was definitely pissed I didn't buy more of them. What was I thinking?
Well,
All right, I'm gonna write it down for myself, and that's gonna be my that's gonna be my sneaky treat for the weekend. My sneaky treat? I've in my life called anything my sneaky treat. What the hell is
you're naughty. You're naughty little sneaky treat.
what a ridiculous thing to say.
It was
God.
glorious. What you drinking over there?
I'm just doing a Pepsi and a water.
Yeah, I'm on water too. I finished my Diet Coke before we started. Anyway, we are going to be discussing the case of Helena Andersson.
That's as close as I think we're going to get. Yeah.
Fantastic. She's written it out for me phonetically. Thank God. So I'll get everybody up to speed right now. In the summer of 1992, 22-year-old Helen, excuse me, she wrote it out phonetically, Lauren.
You're doing great.
Just read what's in the fucking thing. In the summer of 1992, 22-year-old Helena Andersson disappeared following a night out at the club with friends. The following day, her shoes and jewelry were discovered in a wooded area less than 100 yards from her home, but Helena has not been seen or heard from since. Despite an early arrest, which didn't last, police admitted that not much was done with the case for over a decade. So what happened to Helena? What questionable choices did the police make? Who are the suspects? And what is the state of her case now? Christy Oxborrow investigates.
I'm going to say it. We're all going to get mad.
Yeah, doesn't shock me.
I know. Now, before I go any further, I have to apologize for my mispronunciation from last week. In the previous episode, when I was talking about today's episode, I pronounced the name as Helena Anderson, based solely on how is spelled and based on the fact that I'm an English speaker. I have since learned, of course, the name is pronounced Helena Andersson. So my apologies for the error. I'm sure it's said differently if you're saying it in English versus saying it in Swedish, but I don't know.
But we all appreciate your diligence.
We're doing our best. As you can tell from the pronunciation, this episode takes place in Sweden. It is part of the Nordic region in Northern Europe, situated between Finland and Norway. Sweden has more than 100,000 lakes, and more than two-thirds of its land area is covered in forest. Thanks to an experiment in 2016, Sweden became the first country to have its own phone number. Just one phone number for the whole country. People from around the world could call, and then, like a random Swede walking past could answer the phone just to have a conversation. Before the experiment closed, the number received nearly 200,000 calls.
Wow.
Oh boy. The village of Jukkasarvi is home to the famous Ice Hotel, which is exactly as it sounds, a hotel literally made of ice. If you're an Instagram doom scroller like me, then you have probably seen clips about Prince Carl Philip and his wedding. The prince is the Duke of Värmland, the heir apparent to the throne of Sweden, and ridiculously handsome. We're talking Swedish Henry Cavill.
Oh,
Yeah. Um, so the story goes, the prince meets a woman named Sophia at a nightclub. They quickly fall in love. She's a model. She was previously a contestant on a reality TV dating show. So when the prince tells his family he's going to propose to her, they told him, maybe you should find a more appropriate bride for a royal. Um, the prince responded and basically said, it's her or no one else, which is something right out of one of my smutty books. The couple were then married in 2015, and as of this record, have 4 children together.
beautiful.
Beautiful. I don't know if anybody has seen the clip. I see it just so many times it comes up, and it's their wedding, and it's him standing at the altar and her coming down the aisle, and he looks at her, and they write across the screen, it's her or no one else. And I'm like, oh, yep, I get it. And the way he's looking at her, you feel it. You feel it.
You
So
feel it.
yeah, you do. So Sweden has a well-known tradition of fika. You're supposed to really hold the fika, uh, which is a coffee break, but more than a coffee break. It's like a conscious attempt to sit down and enjoy coffee and a sweet treat with friends or family
Hmm.
throughout the day. And I personally think that's lovely. Midsummer is a very popular holiday in Sweden. It takes place in the month of June and is a celebration of summer. Speaking of popular, and this is something I never thought I'd say on this show, in Sweden, Donald Duck is more popular than Mickey Mouse.
Whoa.
Yeah. I heard, and I mean, I don't know if how accurate it was, but the comment was like, the reasoning being Mickey's a little too squeaky clean, and Europeans feel they can relate more to Donald. And I was like,
Interesting.
when it comes to the Mickey and Friends, I think I agree. Although
Look, but
well,
we all know that Mickey was like a bad dog parent. So I don't know if he's so squeaky clean, guys, but also he's a bit of an a-hole, so I support it.
a bad dog parent.
Don't you remember that video, the one cartoon? He's so mean to Pluto. He's so mean to him. When the little seal keeps sneaking in,
When he's trying, is that somebody's in a bath,
of
right?
course.
They're always in a bath. Oh my God, there's some deep-rooted stuff there.
Oh, watch it again. He's mean. He's
Don't
downright
love it.
mean.
He's down, he's downright mean.
Mickey mean. Yeah.
Yeah, you're the
Meanie
purest
Mouse.
soul. Meanie Mouse. Ah, some Swedish inventions include, but are not limited to,
Mm.
Bluetooth technology,
Hmm.
propellers, plastic shopping bags, ring binders, dynamite, Celsius, styrofoam, the three-point seatbelt, laminate flooring, nicotine gum, and zippers. Sweden is home to IKEA, Volvo, the Nobel Prize, H&M, climate activist Greta Thunberg, YouTuber PewDiePie. I had to ask one of my children how to pronounce it because it's spelled in a way you wouldn't expect. And three members of my beloved Philadelphia Flyers, Carl Grundstrom, Emil Andre, and Sammy Erson. It is also home to such musical acts as Robin, Avicii, Loreen, Ace of Base, Zara Larson. I don't know who that is, but she
Oh,
is
yeah, she's very
all
popular.
over my fucking feed.
Yep.
Yeah. So I assumed the kids would know. Roxette and ABBA. And finally, Sweden is the birthplace for actors and actresses, including, but again, not limited to, Ingrid Bergman, my childhood crush Dolph Lundgren, Greta Garbo, all the Skarsgårds, and Malin Ackerman, who is most known for Watchmen, The Final Girls, Couples Retreat, 27 Dresses, and The Hunting Wives. Relevant to my interests, Malin Ackerman co hosted Eurovision in 2024. And in 2012, she starred in the movie Stolen, in which she and Nicolas Cage had a short scene where they both spoke in Swedish,
Wow.
while only one of them is fluent. I'll let you decide which one. Ah, now on to the meat of the episode. I've got to stop calling it that. So of course, that does mean a disclaimer. This portion of the episode will contain brief mentions of sexual assault, so trigger warning for those who need it. I should also add the disclaimer that many of the names involved are Swedish, so my pronunciation may be lacking, but I am doing the best that I can. Also, heads up, this is in Europe. Um, and for one thing, there's not a lot of information about the victim, but because it's in Europe, most of the suspect names were never released publicly. Um, so they were all given nicknames as a whole thing. I'll get into it later, but I'm going to try and keep it as clear as possible. So, as part of my research for this episode, I watched the 2022 Viaplay documentary To Solve a Murder. That's what it is in English. I'm not going to tell you what it is in Swedish because I don't know how to say so many of those words. But it featured the work of journalist Fredrik Undevik. Huh. So here we go. Marta Helena Andersson, known as Helena, was born January 21st, 1970, in Mariestad, Sweden. From the best I can tell, she had two sisters, Gabriella and Ulrika. On the evening of June 13th, 1992, Helena went with friends to a housewarming party in um, Turboda. Turboda? See, I didn't know where I'm supposed to put emphasis. That's on me. Turboda is about 23.5 kilometers east of Mariestad. Now, some reports claim that one of Helena's sisters was also at that party, but I was unable to confirm that. And if that's not frustrating enough, um, half the reports say, well, Gabriella was with her, and then the other half say it was Ulrika that was with her. Like no one can just give me a clear answer. So, from the best I can tell, the group of friends took a bus to Mariestad to go dancing at Stadshotellet, which is a hotel near the city square. When they arrived, Helena discovered she'd left her wallet back at the party, so someone in the group gave her money to get in. Helena and her friends danced and had drinks, and around 1:30 in the morning, she borrowed money to call her sister to say she didn't have her wallet or her keys. Her sister said she was headed to bed, but she would leave her own wallet outside the house so Helena could pay for a taxi. At the time, her sister was the only one home as their parents were away. I think at the time the second sister was living somewhere else, but I can't be 100% sure. From the best I can tell, the club closed around 2 in the morning. Several witnesses claimed to have seen Helena in the square outside the hotel, and while there was a taxi stand about 300 yards away, no one saw her go near it, and no taxis had any recollection of picking her up. Helena had suggested sharing a taxi with a friend because the friend lived in the same direction as her, but the friend was planning to spend the night at her boyfriend's house, which was the opposite direction, so it's believed that Helena decided to walk home. She lived roughly 1.5 kilometers from the hotel, which is just under a mile. And honestly, it's not unreasonable to me. When I was about her age, I used to walk home from work at midnight all the time, and I had to Google map it. Apparently, that was about 3.8 kilometers. At the time, it didn't seem far. Now I'm like, oh God, I wouldn't even want to do half a kilometer. And also, while we're in it, sometimes when I went to the bar and I got down to only having like $10 left, I'd make the choice either pay for a cab ride home or buy two more drinks and then walk home. Am I serious about drinks being less than $5? Yes, it was a glorious time. Shout out to the Park Hotel and RIP to the Rock and Royal.
Pour one out.
May she rest. Nostalgia aside, was it safe for me to walk home? Absolutely not. My house was like 5 kilometers away. It was the middle of the night and I was alone. So, no, not safe. But it was a different time. And when you're in your late teens and early 20s, you just don't see certain dangers that could be there. To be clear, I am not shaming Helena for walking home. Again, I've done that countless times myself. And we should all live in a world where it's safe for women to walk anywhere at any time. However, Helena never arrived home. The following day around noon, one of her sandals was found in a wooded area less than 100 yards from her home. Later, her second shoe and two of her rings were found in the opposite direction near a playground just 50 yards from her home. One of the shoes had a few small drops of blood on it. Now, just to quickly try and explain the geography layout here, after leaving a main road, there's like a horseshoe shaped road that leads to where Helena's house is. In the center of that horseshoe, there's a wooded area. So, to save people from having to walk all the way around that horseshoe to get to the road on the other side, there is a narrow paved bike path that cuts right through that wooded area. One shoe and two rings were found in that wooded area. The other shoe was on the other side of the road, um, if that kind of makes sense, on the other side of the road before we get to the wooded area.
Hmm.
The layout really reminds me of the Rained Murray episode we did back in March, where she was found stabbed on a small footpath just meters from her home in Ireland. I mean, in this case, it was a paved bike path, but I don't know how well lit that specific area was at the time. Police immediately did a massive search for Helena, including using sniffer dogs, helicopters, and countless volunteers. However, no sign of her was ever found. Helena was described as happy, spontaneous, beautiful, easygoing, and very social. Friends say she was easy to talk to and that she excelled at school. Helena was just 22 at the time of her
Ugh.
disappearance. Police, and good on them, immediately treated Helena's case as a murder investigation, despite the lack of a body. They believed that Helena was followed home, and when she got to the bike path, the culprit chased her. Based on her footwear, it's possible maybe her sandals fell off while she was running. However, given the distance between the sandals when they were found, police believe the culprit likely picked them up and threw them in opposite directions in a poor attempt at hiding them. And while that explains the sandals, it doesn't explain the rings. Two of Helena's rings were discovered near one of the sandals, but rings don't just tend to slip off. Did Helena take them off and leave them as a clue while she was being forced into a vehicle? Was that her way of proving she'd been on her way home and she hadn't gone missing voluntarily? When police searched the area, they discovered tire tracks on the bike path. And given the look of the tracks, police believed they were created by a vehicle with rear wheel drive. Police questioned over 300 people, and several witnesses claimed to have seen Helena that night. One claimed to have seen a young woman walking on the bridge towards Helena's home sometime after 2 in the morning. A woman walking her dog between 2:10 and 2:30 in the morning says she heard two angry male voices arguing and a woman crying. The woman, who had known Helena for years, said she was 100% certain the woman crying was Helena. The woman didn't like go seeking her out to see if she could help. She said that the cries sounded more like despair than fear. And she said the only words she could make out that she believes Helena said was, "No, no," and "you mustn't do that." She said she never outright called for help, so the woman didn't think there was a problem. Mm.
Okay.
The woman says she heard a loud noise, like the slamming of a car door, but she didn't hear a vehicle start and she didn't hear a vehicle drive away. The problem with that particular witness is every single time the police spoke with her, she added more details. And it's as though, oh, and I've remembered something else, to the point where the police just didn't believe she was being truthful.
Right.
Two male witnesses claimed to have seen a vehicle in the area around the time that Helena went missing. They were uh, listening to music in a car that was parked along the street where Helena lived. They said around 2:30 they spotted a white or light-colored car driving on the bike path. The car then drove past the street heading south, and then 5 or 10 minutes later, it drove past again, this time going north. The witnesses said the car did not have the headlights turned on. Based on these two witnesses and the tire tracks found on the bike path, police developed the theory that the culprit followed Helena, and when she turned down the bike path, the culprit got out of their car, caught up to her, and possibly knocked her out. The culprit then drove the vehicle along the road to the other side of the woods, passing the two witnesses, put Helena in the car, then left the scene, passing the witnesses a second time. I mean, it's a plausible theory. I also think it's possible there were two culprits, and while one chased Helena on foot, the other drove the car to the other side of the wooded area. The only question I have, why would they throw the sandals? It's possible they didn't see Helena drop her rings, but why not pick up the shoes and take them with you? Why leave them behind as a clue that she was abducted from that area? Either
Yeah.
the either the culprit didn't think of it, or is it possible Helena took the sandals off herself and used them as a potential weapon against her would-be abductors? She didn't have a purse or keys, so maybe she was trying to like throw her sandals at them in the attempt to maybe make them go away. Maybe that's why her sandals were found so far apart. Maybe the culprit left them behind because they were in a hurry to leave the area and they didn't have time to search for the sandals in the dark. It seems more than likely that someone either saw Helena at the club or they noticed her walking and then followed her home. The big question is, who would follow her? Well, at the time, Mariestad had a population of about 20,000. So not a tiny town, but not huge by any means. So the rumor mill in town had a lot of opinions as to who they thought the culprit might be. Some believed it was a taxi driver who saw her leaving the club that night. Some suggested it was one of the doormen who worked at the hotel. Allegedly, one of those doormen was later convicted of killing a taxi driver in 1998. Um, Police could not find any information that connected that convicted doorman to Helena's disappearance, so they kind of just assumed it wasn't him. There were also rumors that one of Helena's former teachers had become obsessed with her and that he was responsible. Some have suggested that there was like a romantic relationship between them and she wanted it to be out and he did not. But I mean, without any names given, this kind of thing, it's very difficult to look up, and there's just no evidence to back up that that ever happened. So we're going to go beyond town gossip and look at legit potential suspects. Now, as I stated earlier, this is in Europe, which means they don't publicly state the name of a suspect until the person is convicted of the crime. I get it. They want to protect someone's privacy and ensure they aren't destroying the life of someone who is falsely accused. It makes sense. The frustrating part becomes when nicknames are used to describe certain suspects, and not every publication uses the same nickname for the same people. So it can get confusing very quickly. Um, I've done my best to try and keep this as clear as possible. The first suspect is a man some publications referred to as the 25-year-old. I forgot to tell you how clever some of these nicknames can be. Others simply call him the Dane because he's from Denmark. So, for the sake of consistency, I'm just going to go with the Dane. So, witnesses say the Dane picked Helena up outside the club in a white car. When the car was checked, police found white dog hair in the back seat, and at the time, Helena just so happened to have a white dog. The Dane was also unable to account for his whereabouts that night. So on July 16th, the Dane was arrested for unlawful deprivation of liberty, aka kidnapping. He denied any involvement. But then it was discovered that the witness who claimed to have seen Helena get into the Dane's car that night had outright lied, either to purposely blame the Dane or to take the focus off of someone else. We don't know which one. The witness was charged with obstructing justice and did jail time for it. Charges against the Dane were dropped, and he was released after spending 20 days in custody.
Wow.
A second suspect in the case is a man referred to as the detainee or the acquaintance. He was arrested in 1996 after making suspicious statements during a phone interview with a journalist. From the best I can tell, it was basically like someone asked about Helena, and he was like, "Oh, I know someone." And then he later was like, "Well, I know someone who lived in that same town. That's all I meant." And it was like, "What?" I don't know. So he did end up admitting he knew Helena, denied any involvement in her disappearance. Um, he was released a few days later when police determined he wasn't even in Mariestad on the night Helena disappeared. Now, the third suspect gets interesting because he has publicly come out to talk about the case, so we actually know his name. The media refer to him as the man in pilot glasses because he was wearing aviator sunglasses that night. His real name is Klaus Malmgren. Oof. Klaus knew Helena because his girlfriend at the time was friends with Helena's friend group. So Klaus and his girlfriend were at the housewarming party in Turbida with Helena before heading to the hotel to dance. Klaus told the police he attended the party with his girlfriend, and then she headed to work while the rest of them went to the hotel. At the hotel, Klaus gave Helena money to call the house in Turbida because she wanted to find out if she had in fact left her wallet there. He then gave her money later that night, about half an hour before the club closed, so that she could call home. At closing, Klaus walked to a phone booth nearby where he called his girlfriend at work. The call was registered at 2:15. Klaus then walked to a nearby grill to buy a sausage, and then he walked east towards his home, which was roughly 2 kilometers away. Helena's home was in the west. Klaus said on his way home, he ran into his friend Henrik, who was heading home from a date. The men spoke briefly before Klaus continued on his way. Once home, he called his girlfriend at work. Again, the call registered at 4 a.m. And then he said he went to sleep because at the time he was quite drunk. From the best I can tell, it doesn't seem as though the police ever spoke with Henrik, but Henrik says he remembers running into Klaus that night. He said it happened probably between 3:30, and the reason he remembers that specific night is because that was Henrik's first date with his now girlfriend. Klaus denies any involvement with Helena's disappearance, and based on the timeline, I'm quick to believe him. The club closed at 2. He calls his girlfriend at 2:15 from near the club. Then he goes and buys some food. From the sounds of it, I think he like stood around eating it. I don't think he ate it while he was walking. And then on his way home, which to get home would have taken him maybe 30 to 40 minutes, depending, he runs into Henrik around 3:30. Then he gets home and calls his girlfriend at 4. Based on the location of Helena's sandals and rings, it's believed she was abducted from the wooded area across from her home, which is approximately 3.2 kilometers from Klaus's home, which Google tells me is then like a 45-minute walk at best. So, how would he have time to walk 1.5 kilometers with Helena before abducting her? And he didn't have a vehicle. So then where did he take her? How did he manage to hide the body and then get all the way back home before 4 a.m. to call his girlfriend? And if the white vehicle seen in the area at the time was involved, and Klaus supposedly was involved, where did he get the car? Who did it belong to? Because he didn't own a white car at the time. And if he had the car, why wouldn't he have just driven himself home after? Why would he walk all that way? For me, a non-professional. The timeline just doesn't work for Klaus to be the culprit. And initially, the police agreed, so after he was questioned, Klaus was removed from the potential suspect list. And then in 1998, police interest in Klaus was renewed when it was discovered that days after Helena's disappearance, a witness came forward claiming to have seen a man and woman walking together on the bridge near Helena's home. The witness said she wasn't sure if the woman was Helena or not, but she described the woman's trousers, which apparently were a match for what Helena was wearing that night. The witness described the man as wearing aviator sunglasses or pilot glasses. Somehow, when that witness gave that statement, it was entered into the police computer incorrectly. So police working the case didn't see that for 6 years.
I can't.
And despite initially writing Klaus off as a suspect, now police were convinced he was responsible, so they brought him in for questioning countless times over the next few years. But Klaus's story never changed. He was adamant he was not responsible. In 2001, Klaus received a letter from the prosecutor's office letting him know he was officially dismissed as a suspect in Helena's case. Klaus was relieved that the entire thing was over. He ended up meeting someone, they got married, they had some kids, and kind of overall, he moved on with his life. What he did not realize was that while the prosecutor's office may have dismissed Klaus as a suspect, the police had not. The police spent years trying to come up with a way to catch him in a lie that they believed he was telling. For them, he was their number one suspect. One of them even suggested hypnotizing Klaus into telling the truth, which, if I'm being honest, is really terrifying. Imagine getting arrested for something you said you did while under hypnosis. It feels like it can't be legal. I mean, maybe the plan was to get him to confess under hypnosis and then show him the video, hoping that he'd confess for real. I don't know. Regardless, I don't like it was even a suggestion in a police
I don't
investigation.
think you can force someone to get hypnotized, and also not everyone can get hypnotized.
Great
Doesn't
call.
work on everybody.
Great call. And then the police came up with an idea that they thought was really going to work. A massive undercover operation similar to the Mr. Big sting that we spoke about in episode 118, Beverly Lynn Smith. I'm actually sure we've spoken about it multiple times,
We have.
but in 2007, Klaus answered a survey or questionnaire outside of a store. He said he often liked to answer those because you had a chance at winning something random, like some sort of a prize. Well, a few months later, he received a letter stating he won a weekend trip that involved a tasting menu at some fancy new restaurant. Klaus and his wife were jazzed at the idea of a weekend getaway without their kids, so they said yes. What they didn't realize was that everyone else on that trip was an undercover police officer. Klaus and his wife Linda were quickly befriended by Stefan and Marianne. The couple told Klaus and Linda that Stefan was a truck driver and Marianne owned a catering company. The truth, of course, is that both Stefan and Marianne were undercover agents with a little known section of the police called the SSI. So while having a bit of a chat, Klaus learns that Stefan recently signed up for a membership at the exact same gym that Klaus goes to. No way! The two men agree when they get home, they're going to start going to the gym together. They're going to be gym bros, help motivate each other. Well, they start doing that, and soon they're meeting at the gym 3 times a week, and that quickly escalates into going out for drinks together. And then one night after drinks, Klaus says that Stefan suggested they go to a strip club. It's just right next door. Why not? So Klaus says, all right. And once they get there, one of the dancers suggests she and Klaus maybe go to a private room, see what happens. Stefan pushed for it, even said he'd pay for it, but Klaus was uncomfortable and said, yeah, no thanks. Now, at this point, Klaus still does not know that Stefan is an undercover cop. So it's starting to feel like this whole strip club thing may have been an attempted honey trap. You know, where they catch someone in a compromised position and then try to extort money or information from them in exchange for not telling their spouse about what they caught them doing. But you know what? Kudos to Klaus for just not being interested. So Klaus and Linda become very good friends with Stefan and Marianne. They spend a lot of time together, and we're talking like they're the people you call up to spend your birthday with. Like that's how tight they were. So at one point, they're talking about money and how much they're making at work, and Klaus didn't seem very happy with his job, and Stefan started bragging that his trucking job was bringing in a lot of money. And then he offered to hook Klaus up and said that the bosses at the logistics company that he worked for agreed to meet Klaus for an interview at their headquarters in Amsterdam. So these bosses who've never met this man fly Klaus out to Amsterdam for an interview. And but he said once they left the airport, they immediately took him to the red light district where all the sex-oriented businesses are located. And then the bosses were pushing Klaus to have sex with someone. And they were like, don't worry about it. We'll pay for it. And I'm like, you guys are being so obvious. I don't even know what to do
Well, it's
with
also
it.
like such a weird approach. Like,
Mhm.
hey, let's get him to fuck somebody else. That'll be the kick. That'll be the ticket. Like, what?
It's, I would be wildly uncomfortable to go anywhere with anybody, strangers, or you know, like even for example, you and I, if we go somewhere and you're like, hey, that dude wants to fuck you, and I'm like, no thanks, I don't think there's a planet on which you'd be like, I'll pay for it. And I'd be
No,
like, yes,
no,
please. Like,
no. It's
that's
so
gross.
weird.
It's so crazy, especially when it's like this guy's your friend. He knows you're married. Like, why is he even suggesting this? Why is everybody offering to pay for this? Like that alone is
Also, a
so like
trucking company? Like, what is this trucking company? We'll
I
fly you out, and if you bone this stranger, then guess what? We'll give you a job? Like, what are we talking about?
I feel like they've never done this sting before because they did such a bad job. No one would believe this. If it was a movie, they'd be like, this is stupid. No one would fall for that. Dumbest thing I've ever heard.
It's also such a huge amount of resources.
Oh, I do complain about that. Yeah, it's
Sorry, I'm
it's
getting ahead of you.
insane
Yep.
to me. I'm so glad we're both on the same wavelength there. But yeah, shockingly, when these strangers try to offer to pay for Klaus to have sex with a stranger, different stranger, um, shockingly he declined. Um, the bosses then agreed that they were going to let Klaus be a driver part-time for their company. He basically uh, escorted people and items in and around Sweden and got to drive like really fancy cars. And for months, the company wined and dined him. They took him on expensive trips. They let him drive these expensive vehicles, and they were constantly praising him for the good work he was doing. Then the company bosses decided he's doing so well, we want to bring him on full time. But they say, well, before we can do that, we got to fly you back to Amsterdam for a proper interview. But this time, as soon as they left the airport, Klaus was taken to a hotel outside of town where his interview turned into an interrogation. They asked him about Helena, and Klaus said he wasn't involved. They accused him of lying. These bosses then told Klaus that they liked him a lot, so much so that they were willing to help him take care of his problem. If he just told them where the body was, they'd take care of it. Cops would never find it. Klaus again said, I wasn't involved. I don't know where the body is. Frustrated that Klaus wouldn't cooperate, the bosses left him at the hotel, and Klaus was forced to find his own way back to Sweden. Yeah. They were just like, I
Oh
guess
my
we're done.
God.
And they just left him there. Once he gets home, he's shocked to find out that Stefan, who Klaus said he considered his best friend at the time, had just completely ghosted him and just would not answer any of his calls anymore. Years later, Klaus and Linda see a program on TV about undercover police agents, and there are photos of two agents who go by the names Stefan and Marianne. Now, the faces were blurred, but the fact that they used those names, they could tell from the rest of the photo that those were their supposed friends. It was at that moment that Klaus realized that the entire thing was just a ruse to catch him in a lie. He later said he felt violated to know that he let these people in his home and his life. Like these people were around his kids. And they were lying to him the entire time. The prosecutor, who had previously dismissed Klaus as a suspect, claims they did not know anything about this sting operation. And I get that the police didn't have a lot of leads, but it is fascinating to me that they really zeroed in on Klaus as a suspect to the point where even after he was dismissed from the suspect list by a prosecutor, they were still so convinced it might be him, they spent an obscene amount of money on a sting operation that ultimately led nowhere. For real, how much money did they spend schmoozing that guy before realizing he's not changing his story?
And also, based on one witness saying, oh, yeah, I did see him walking with her. I saw a man walking with a woman. Can't
Yeah.
be sure it was her, but the guy was wearing aviators. It's like there's more than one pair of aviators in the country.
It's
It's
kind
really
of
loose.
insane.
It's a
Yeah.
very loose identification.
Especially when they're like, I saw a guy with glasses. That's got to be him. Maybe. And then somebody else who knew him was like, I actually met him in the other direction, but I like know him, so I knew it was him. And they were like, we don't know.
This is crazy.
Yeah, it's especially they saw that guy from afar. And yeah, I don't know. I guess only one pair of aviators is allowed in the country at a time.
It's nuts.
Oh, so after abandoning Klaus in Amsterdam, you think that's the end of it, right? Wrong. In 2017, 10 years after that sting operation, police brought Klaus in for questioning again. This time, they offered him a deal. They said, hey, we'll go easier on you if you just tell us where the body is. What cards do you think you hold now? Nothing has changed in the last decade. You didn't learn anything about this man to go, aha, guilty. You've learned nothing new. You've just decided, okay, so that expensive sting operation didn't work. Okay, understood. We're just going to be ourselves, but do that exact same thing and be like, if you tell us, we'll go easy on you. You've made this man's life hell for over a decade. What's
Yeah.
going easier on him? I don't even know. Um, so they offer the deal. Again, he's the same story. I had nothing to do with it. I have no idea where her body is. And somehow he was arrested for her murder, but because there was no evidence, he was quickly released. In 2019, Klaus learned he was no longer considered a suspect, not because the police or prosecutor notified him, simply because he read about it in the newspaper.
Jesus.
Which brings us to suspect number 4, whose identity is officially unknown. So, in 2010, a man told police and a journalist that he knew the identities of the two men who were responsible for Helena's disappearance. The man's name was never mentioned publicly. So, to spare any confusion, because there's a lot of men here, I'm just going to call him Greg. I don't know why I chose Greg at random. I just did. So, Greg tells the police, as well as Frederick Undevik, who is the journalist who did the Viaplay documentary. He says he knows what happened to Helena. Greg says he used to drink with a man who was only ever referred to as the driver. One night while drinking, the driver confesses to Greg that he murdered Helena. But after realizing he's now just drunkenly confessed, the driver panics and tells Greg if Greg ever tells anyone, the driver's going to kill him. So Greg remains silent. But when the driver died in a house fire in 2010, Greg finally felt safe enough to go to the police. But it turns out the police already knew about the driver from the driver's neighbor, who told them that the day after Helena disappeared, he saw the driver hosing down the inside of the trunk of his car, like using so much water that it was alarming. What kind of car did that guy drive, you ask?
A white one?
A white Volvo with rear wheel drive. Mhm. Like the tire tracks found at the scene and the same color vehicle seen by witnesses. So the driver didn't appear to have any connection to Helena. So if he was responsible, it seems maybe a crime of opportunity. At the time, police believed that neighbor's story was plausible enough, so they picked up the driver's car and took it in for testing. However, no blood or DNA was found in the trunk. Police also searched the driver's property, where police dogs showed interest in a 2 by 2 meter outbuilding. Inside the building, police found bone fragments, but they turned out to be pigs, which also don't love that.
No.
A small building that just has pig bones? I can't think about it.
Well, pigs also could
Eats.
have been eating.
Yep. Oh, 100%. Um, the driver was later removed from the suspect list. Greg now tells the police after Helena disappeared, he saw the driver bring his car to a nearby forest late at night. He parked on the road, so the car's headlights were shining down on a very specific section of the forest. The driver got out, wandered to the part that was all lit up by the headlights, then got back in his car and left. So Greg has written the story. The driver buried Helena's body in that area, and he was going back to check to make sure the grave was undisturbed. From the best I can tell, the police have never inspected that specific area. In the documentary, the journalist went to it, um, but because like he can't just start digging on that land, like because it's not his, so he can't just dig. He did also bring a dog that specifically scents human bones. Like they've tested this dog. The dog doesn't fall for animal bones. It specifically looks for human bones. They didn't really say if the dog touched on anything in that area, but I'm gonna say it. That dog is one of the most stunning creatures I've ever seen. Like that dog was gorgeous. I'm probably gonna put a picture of it in the case file, but I will make sure to label nothing happens to the dog just in case. Because
Working dog.
just, yeah, he's just there to do his job. Gorgeous. So he checked the area. He's been imploring the police to do so. From the best I could tell, they never have. Um, but also, like, since DNA has come a very long way since the 90s, maybe we retest the samples from the Volvo, you know, in case Greg and the neighbor were really onto something there. Maybe that's something to think about. Um, but the police aren't interested in retesting the Volvo because the driver passed And now he's no longer able to defend himself against accusations, so that means they'll never investigate him.
That's insane.
Yep. At the time of his death, the driver was 80, meaning when Helena disappeared, he was about 62. So I'm like, could a 62-year-old have done it? I mean, maybe. But also, Greg said he knew the two men who killed Helena and then proceeded to only talk about the driver. So who was the second man? Was the neighbor somehow involved? Well, we're never going to know because the neighbor passed away in 2015. So I doubt he's ever going to be investigated either. Not that I'm accusing him. Because also, why would he tell the police about the driver right away if he was involved? But also, who knows? Maybe to try and pin it all on him and hope to get away. Who knows? Again, could go either way. Um, but we have one more suspect connected to the case, and that is a man named Anders Eklund, whose name is only known publicly because he's been arrested, well, specifically convicted of murder. He was a truck driver from Tushtukter. Um, he strangled and sexually assaulted a 10-year-old girl named Engla Hoagland in April 2008. Engla went missing on her way home from soccer practice, and a man in the area just happened to be out testing his new camera and taking random photos. And then when he got the pictures back, he realized he got pictures of Engla as well as a red car that appeared to be following her in the photos. He went to the police. They were able to identify the car, which led them to Eklund, who outright confessed to the crime and admitted to where he had buried Engla's body. Eklund's DNA was then entered into the system, and it came back as a match to a murder from June 2000. 31-year-old Pernilla Helgren was found strangled and sexually assaulted, but with no other evidence, the crime went cold. Once Eklund's DNA came back as a match, he admitted to killing Pernilla as well. He also was found guilty of a rape in 2006 and guilty to various child pornography charges. Eklund was sentenced to life with no chance of parole. Since his guilty verdict, Eklund has also been suggested as the suspect in at least two other crimes. In July 1994, 16-year-old Malin Olsen disappeared following a party. Her body was found in a cemetery the following day. Eklund is also suspected in the disappearance of 6-year-old Yasmina Yasharash, who was last seen in July 1997. Both cases remain unsolved. While there is no evidence connecting Eklund to Helena's disappearance, as a truck driver, he would have been all over the country, so he's definitely a possible suspect and given his violent history. But after more than 30 years, how can police expect to solve this case? The answer, through DNA testing. Forensic testing has come so far from the early 90s. A sample that wouldn't have found anything back then could yield results now because so much less is needed to get any sort of a result compared to what it was 30 years ago. So, with this in mind, in 2018, police sent items to the National Forensic Center to be retested. They sent both of Helena's sandals and one of her rings. Well, what about the second ring? Good call on remembering there were two. Well, at one point, the police got so desperate for answers in the case that they reached out to a psychic and they gave that psychic one of Helena's rings. And since then, they just don't know what happened to it. Yeah, the whereabouts of that ring still currently unknown.
Great.
So the items were retested. There was no DNA found on the ring, but the sandals had DNA samples from at least 3 different people. One woman, one man, and there was one sample that was mixed. Since the female sample came back as a familial match to the Anderssons, it's assumed the female DNA was Helena. The unknown male DNA was compared to Klaus Malmgren, aka Pilot Glasses Man, not a match. I assume the sample was compared to other samples in the system, which means it would have then been automatically compared to Anders Eklund. And since nothing has been publicly stated about it, I assume that means Eklund is no longer a suspect. Um, but as of now, that unknown male sample remains unknown. The third sample that was mixed, it was DNA from two different people together. Still don't know who the identity of either of those. Now, the driver and his Volvo had been tested, or well, the driver was tested. Um, the trunk found nothing, but the driver's DNA was found in the Volvo. And I just feel like if the police still have that, the DNA of of the driver, maybe we compare it. We just take a look. We just see,
It's an
you know,
afternoon.
I get that the driver has passed. I get that they can't investigate him. It just would be nice to know if they were on the right track for that. In September 2021, the DNA of a suspect who was 60 at the time was sent for analysis. It was never publicly stated if it was a match to Heliana's sandals or not, but shortly after getting the results, the 60-year-old was arrested. Police have not publicly stated the man's name, but they said he was previously involved in the investigation, but was never a suspect until now. At the time of Heliana's disappearance, this man would have been about 31 years old, and he did own a white car. At the time, he allegedly scrapped the vehicle several years earlier. Um, he denies any involvement in Heliana's disappearance. Police announced they believe the man acted alone and stated no further arrests were planned. However, there's not really any word on what happened since, and I actually think he's just was quietly released. I mean, it's it's tough to say what is really going on with the investigation because in 2022, a detective who was the lead of this investigation in 2001, he admitted when he got this case in 2001, he never read the reports from the preliminary investigation. And that as of 21 years later, he still hadn't ever read them. And I get he had other cases to work on, but in 21 years, you never found time to look through those? Were you even trying? Did you just write off the case by that point? Because by 2001, it was 9 years old, and you were like, "Meh, that'll never get anywhere." Um, Other police officers who worked the case said the initial case was handled so badly, it could be used in police training as what not to do.
Jesus.
As of this record, Heliana's remains have never been found. When the lead detective in the case retired in 2021, no one took his place. In June 2022, Swedish prosecutors closed the case, stating it will only be reopened if new evidence emerges. It's interesting that they've closed it after they arrested someone, but he never went to trial, so I think he was released. So I guess they decided it wasn't him. I don't know. It's all very confusing. And at the end of the day, Helena Andersson and her family deserved better. Reporting for True Crime and Cocktails, I'm Christy Oxborrow.
What a mess.
Yeah.
Let's take a quick break, hit the can, grab a drink, and we'll be back with more on the Helena Andersson episode of True Crime and Cocktails. Right, clap two on three. One, two, three. Welcome back to this episode of True Crime and Cocktails. We're of course discussing Helena Andersson. Um, this is such a sad one.
I know.
It always sucks when it's like straight up police incompetence, which is not a first on this show. Sadly, not a last. Um, but yeah, it just feels like overall, I'm like, my God, this poor woman. There's just like, and I find it interesting too that because we know this about Europe, especially if people have followed the Madeleine McCann case, that there are very specific rules about not naming people the whole Christian B in that case, where it was like they can't give his full name, which was so interesting, even though we know that man has committed heinous crimes.
Yep.
Heinous crimes.
Yep.
It's not like we're dragging his quote good name through the mud. Anyway, so I understand that. It's just wild to me that the same place, and I'm speaking about Sweden specifically, and we have nothing to compare this to, obviously, but I'm talking about this case. They're like, we can't release these names, but we're going to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars to do an elaborate, long ass ruse involving flights, prostitutes, sex workers, because again, I'm assuming from what it sounded like, that wasn't a 2 week grift. Like that was like months, right?
Oh, yeah. And if he was working for them, they must have been paying him. He wouldn't have been doing it for free. The whole
Well,
point was to get in with this company to make more money.
they also had like luxury cars involved. So it's
Yeah.
like, even if I'm not saying that they were buying them, they were at least renting these vehicles. Like, this is a lot of money.
It feels insane to and then to fly him to multiple trips, but especially to Amsterdam twice for interviews.
I mean,
I,
the hard pressure, I guess I hear you that like maybe their rationale was like, if we get him to cheat on his wife with a sex worker,
mm,
then we'll be like, you know, you did anything else bad? Or it's like we could use this against you. Like, I guess I understand that, but I feel like in the Mr. Big scheme we talked about, at least the one of them, the whole thing they were trying to do was to get the person to do something illegal, right? So
oh, sure.
it was like, hey, we want you to do this thing for us. And then it was like, well, how can we trust you? We
Right.
need some way to know that we can trust you. What's the
Right.
right? What's the
We need dirt on you so that if
right?
something goes wrong, we have something to hold against you.
Right. And I guess like collateral, I guess for me, I'm just like, I just don't think that the it doesn't feel to me like they fully thought out the whole sex worker angle. Like,
It was a choice.
yeah,
And then I'm just like, it came up at least twice. Who knows how
yeah.
many times it came up that we don't know about. So I'm just like, did you complain about your wife? And he was like, here's how we're going to get him. Here's how we're going to get him. And I mean, it also could be as simple as they were like, he's married. We're going to threaten his marriage. How are we going to do that? We're going to shove temptation in his face. And
Right.
they did it at least twice. And he went, no, thanks. And I'm like, on one hand, I'm like, you applaud the man for being like, I'm not cheating on my wife. And on the other hand, it's like, would he have cheated if it wasn't the creepy friend being like, I'll pay for it? Like,
Well, this is yeah.
that's so gross to
I just
me.
don't understand why they didn't make the grift that it was like, hey, I need your help with something. And
Mm,
it's like, I've had this thing in my past or whatever. I don't want my
sure.
wife to find out. Can I trust you? Like, why not try and open the door through
Hmm.
something that's a little more A to B as opposed to like, we're gonna get you to bone, we're gonna get you to bone a sex worker and then we'll
Hmm.
figure it out. Like, it's like, it didn't feel like there was a full plan, or the full plan was like, there was no backup. Because then
Yeah,
it was like, he didn't bone the sex worker, fly him to Amsterdam. We'll tell him to have sex with a sex worker there. Like, it's like, why did you think like change the trick? If
hmm,
that didn't work, come up with something else.
yeah.
Like,
And isn't
not like, well, we'll just have to have a group of other people pressuring him to have sex with a sex worker. Why?
because isn't that legal there? Like, isn't sex work legal?
In Amsterdam, sure. Yes,
So
so it's
then,
not doing
so then
anything
it's like,
illegal.
so you're just saying like he's cheating on his wife. Like that's the angle you've chosen.
But then what? Where does that go? It's like, okay, he cheated on his wife. How does that connect to him admitting to you he killed a woman?
It's wild. I assume like the only thing I could think of was they would be like, we have photo proof of you with this woman. We're going to show your wife unless you tell us. And it's like, but even that, like, if he genuinely committed murder, which I don't believe he did, but if he did, that's not gonna be what breaks him. If he's been
No.
holding off for decades, being like, nope, and there's nothing that ties him to it.
No, it needed
Yeah,
to literally be, hey, you've done a really good job working part-time as a driver, but we like you so much. We have special work for you to do, but it's kind of illegal. Can we trust you?
there it is.
This is an easy switch. You didn't need to try and get him to have sex with a stripper, and you didn't need to have him try and have sex with a sex worker in Amsterdam.
It felt to go for it once was
But
odd. To go
what
for
I
it
also
twice.
what I also love is now listen, I know we weren't there, we don't know the inner workings, but I love that he it never like it wasn't until he saw them on TV that he was like, I've been duped. Like it's like none of the sex stuff was a tip off. Like at no point were you like, yeah, this is kind of weird.
I assume he was like, this is weird, but at the time, like that guy was like his best friend.
Right.
So I think he was just like, I guess this is just what some dudes do. And then I'm like, was Stefan cheating on his fake wife? Or was he just pushing you to cheat? Like it's so weird to me. And I'm like, I don't get what they're doing.
Well, then I just started to think about like, is there anyone in my life that I don't realize is an undercover cop trying to get me to do something, you know?
Oh, I would have cracked
Oh, we've known
years
each other for
ago.
too long. I don't think we're getting born into this. You know what I mean?
What if I'm a plant? What
From
if they
birth?
what if they like put me in and they've been raising me as that, but it's like I something's got to happen. Like I've got to hear like a certain tone, and then all of a sudden, then I'll click into it.
Okay, but I guess what I would say is you were born first. So how are they like, we need to have this child born because then 2 years later, there's going to be another child born and she's going to do something. She's going to be involved in something, and we need child one to
Yeah.
click into wee woo, wee woo.
What if there's just literally millions of us? Maybe not millions, hundreds of thousands of these sleeper cell children just sprinkled throughout the world in case they ever need them. The problem is there hasn't been a song or a tone or a sound or anything that's made me like change into something, with the exception to, to hearing Gasolina, and then
I
I turn
was
into a whole other
just going to
hoe, you
say,
know?
I've seen you with Gasolina.
Yeah,
Anyway,
yeah.
yeah, it's wild to think about. Then I started thinking about, I was like, well, I guess it would explain some of my exes.
I don't know if any of them were smart enough for that kind of
Well, either
work.
that or they're very good actors. No, they weren't. Um, it's always a laugh when
Oh,
we go there. Anyway, okay. Yeah, the nicknames, it's so funny to me. It feels to me, okay, I think we can rule out Klaus. He's ruled out. His
I
DNA
think
didn't
so,
match.
yeah.
They tried testing him with all the sex workers. He didn't crack, so I guess that means something. I don't know. But anyway, his DNA didn't match, so I feel like he's out. I feel like, I mean, look, it's often the simplest explanation is true, right? But this case, it does feel to me like the serial killer. I know it would be a crime of opportunity, and I know that it was like, oh, it doesn't appear that his DNA matched. But then I guess to that, I would say, how degraded is the mixed DNA? Like,
Mm,
is it that it didn't match anybody, or is it that they can't determine? You know what I mean? Only because it feels to me like someone who has the violent past and also has a similar MO because she was young, right? She
mm,
was 22. And I know some of the other girls he attacked were younger, but it also feels like an escalation in that I'm talking about Anders Eklund. There's an escalation in his earlier kills, they found the bodies.
right?
But then later, I believe you mentioned one who was never found.
Yeah.
And then obviously Helena was never found. So I don't know. If I'm a profiler, I'm not. I just do it for fun. I would definitely be looking at that guy going, well, can we place him in the area at the time? Because that's an MO of somebody who's picking girls up off the street.
Oh, yeah.
And the fact that there was nothing connecting them, but he was like, operating at the same time and had been doing similar terrible crimes to me would be enough to like, are we certain he doesn't match the other DNA? Is the other DNA
Mm.
matchable? Because if the DNA doesn't match any of these people, and we're talking about somebody else completely, well then what? Then what? And I mean, what's sad again is that they've closed the case because, if it doesn't match any of these people, we'd want to keep going. Now, I understand your point that it doesn't appear they've run the one set of DNA,
Mm.
right? They haven't compared it. And to that we say you took the time to hire psychics. You took the time to pull off some sort of very elaborate undercover cop situation. You don't
Mhm.
want to take an afternoon and just run it? You can get that in a lab. That's easy these days. Like, just run it.
Right?
Yes.
I just, again, like of everybody that they've presented as could be possible, because to your point, it could be somebody that they don't know about, which is terrifying. Um, but I lean towards the driver as being the most plausible. But with that in mind, I doubt if he managed to pick a girl off the street and get away with it and put her body somewhere that no one's ever found it and then got away with it for the rest of his life, that's not the first time he's done that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there have to be other women that he's done this to. And so it's
Yeah.
like, maybe we just put his DNA in the system and see what happens.
It can't hurt. Can't hurt. Especially also if he was potentially not working alone.
Right?
Yeah.
It's also wild to be like, I know the two people. This is the guy. What do you mean you know the two people?
Well,
Who's
he
the
kept
other
being
person?
referred to as the driver, so it's also like, did he do the murder or was he just the driver?
Great question. Who else was with him? It got really confusing. There was a moment where I'm like, is the is the neighbor and the guy who's coming forward, are they the same person? And then I'm like, well, they can't be because the other guy said he didn't come forward until after 2010 and the neighbor came forward earlier and it's just give us names.
I mean, is it possible, because I love to build a they all did it theory, is it
Oh,
possible he worked with Anders Eklund?
oh, I think it's possible anybody could have,
Yeah.
of course.
I do also feel like the fact that they found pig bone fragments
Mm,
to me is like, so was he keeping pigs that he fed her and other bodies to? To your point, I agree with you. I think if he got away with this, I don't think this was his first murder. But
no.
again, the pig bones also feel like way more of a red flag to me than I feel like the police were treating them, because we know that pigs, I mean, we know Robert picked him, like we know the pigs will do this. So like if there is evidence that he had like been keeping pigs, even one pig, to me, that's a huge red flag.
100%.
Why are you randomly keeping a pig in a shed? Were you just keeping it and that's what you were feeding it? Just saying. He should have been smarter and gotten rid of those. I feel like the pig bones could be the fucking smoking gun.
Oh, it's possible.
You talked about the police dog that was so attractive, such
Yeah.
a good looking dog. I said, well, if that police dog worked in tandem with my pet psychic, maybe they could have gotten somewhere.
Hmm.
Jumping
Hmm.
around. Um, Police wanted to hypnotize him to confess. This is, of course, we're talking about um Klaus. Uh, I just want to say, to your point, yes, that needs to be illegal. I have to believe it is. And to the point I made before that I just need to reiterate, you can't necessarily hypnotize everybody. And like, I don't understand these methods for a place that is so concerned about like protecting identities
Mm,
and you know, we're not going to put up any innocent, we want to make sure the person is guilty before we take them to court.
sure.
You're giving away evidence to a psychic in the form of a ring you never got back.
Hmm.
You're Where is that ring? That's another thing. Is that the smoking gun that's been lost? You're doing that. You're putting forward ideas to hypnotize somebody. Is that going to hold up in a court of law? It wouldn't in America, in North America. No way. No way. Not only have I never heard of it being done, but also if your evidence to bring in to prove your case is, well, we hypnotized him and he said he did it, any court is going to be like, objection.
Yeah, and
Pseudoscience. Like
I hope it's
there's
said
so
with
many
that
like,
tone. Yeah.
so
It
again, I'm like, it just feels to me like a tale as old as time, which is they hone in on one suspect and they just want to make that suspect stick. And in this case, it feels like they did it to a degree that is unbelievable, especially because there were other suspects.
Oh yeah.
Oftentimes, it's like when we hear about this on a case on the show, it's like, well, they found somebody and then they kind of stopped looking, or there wasn't any other obvious suspects, so they just drilled this one person. But in this case, there was other suspects. There's no
Oh yeah.
reason to like stick to that one so hard for so long. Then to find out, oh, well, there was this other evidence never got entered properly. It really does sound like you were saying towards the end there that they could teach courses about how this was one
Mm.
everything not to do. And I would put at the top of that list trying to push a suspect into having sex with a sex worker to manipulate him somehow. We're not even sure how it would work. That would be the top of my list.
I'd like to see the ideas they had that didn't make the cut. Like if they all
Great
went
point.
sex workers, that's how we're going to do it. Like what were their other ideas?
Was it one of those things where they were like, well, if this was a sex-based crime, then he won't be able to resist the opportunity? Because he did. So that
Twice.
blows that out of the water.
Yeah. Hmm. Yeah, again, I just want to see the notes they made on what were the ideas,
Let's see the yellow foolscap paper.
please. Yep.
Let's pull it out of the trash.
Pull out the legal pad.
Pull out the legal pad.
If I have to run a pencil over the original page just to see what you had written, that's all I need to know. I just want to know what were the other ideas they were kicking around. Also, who allowed a program on TV about undercover police officers? And I know it blurred their faces, but it gave the names they used while they were undercover. Why would you do that?
Why is there ever a story about undercover cops ever? Ever? It kind of feels like, I don't know, never a good move.
It seems wild, especially to be like, here's the photos of these people. You can't see the faces, but you can see the body and see the exact same name. You're like, that is that person.
Why weren't they changing names more?
I don't
Was
know.
this the pilot program of this whole idea?
It very well could be, and hopefully it shut down. Did they ever do like did one of their stings ever work?
Great question.
Or have they just been repeatedly offering to pay people to have sex with sex workers? And they're like, God, well, okay, well, maybe next time.
That's how we'll know this man committed a decade-old murder.
Yeah.
If he bones a stranger. It's just, again, I don't get it. I don't feel like there is any clear A to B. If
Mm.
he does this, that gets this. Like, I just am like, I don't know what that,
I
it
don't know what they
really,
hoped to get out
no,
of
it's
it.
really confounding and weird.
Like, yeah.
So weird. Again, to me, it needed to be Stefan winning him over. I can get you this job, but they need people who are discreet. Can they trust you?
Mm.
That needed to be like the same as the Canadian sting operation.
It makes sense.
That one worked, by the way. Like that one, it was like they managed to get him to confess to everything.
Well, they also did they try paying for the man to have sex?
Did they hard pressure him not once, but twice?
Yeah, like what is this high school? Like leave him alone
Well,
if
then
he's
the other
not
the other thing,
interested.
like then the fact that the third go was all right, the first two offers of us to pay for sex for him didn't pan out. So here's what we're going to do for
Hmm.
round three. Put
Hmm.
him in a hotel room as soon as he lands and just interrogate him like we're the police.
Yep.
Isn't he going to figure out you're the police? Doesn't matter. Like,
I just want to
huh?
know what was the point they went, well, this is a bust. I don't know. And then they just left him. They were like, I guess we're out. I
I just
don't
feel like even yeah,
like at that point, be like, Stefan goes in. Not that we're helping them, but at this point, Stefan goes in and he goes, oh my God, you'll never believe. I just found out that my bosses have been doing something dirty and they're going to bring down the hammer on me and throw me under the bus. I need your help hiding this crime that I've done for my boss
right.
because we're tight. We could do that.
Yeah.
But it's just like, first of all, if I get any sort of like great news, you just won, I'm never going to believe it.
No,
And
no.
then also you go somewhere and like I think of like on my honeymoon, we went to this resort and there were all these couples that had been married pretty much same time as us. Some of them were like on like an anniversary, but most were on a honeymoon and they were all trying to like they were like, "Oh my God, we're all the same. We should all be friends. Let's all get dinner." And my husband and I just went, "Thanks, we're good," and bowed out. And now I'm like, was that part of a sting? Did we do something? Because it just, I mean, the answer is they were just friendly. But my instincts were to not trust it. I was like, something's not right.
These people want to have dinner with us? Clearly they're going to try and force us to have sex with a sex worker by the end of this thing.
To be fair, I didn't know that was part of the deal
No.
at that point. But it was just, I just remember in that moment being like, why are all these people wanting to hang out? We don't know each other. And I was like, I'm on my honeymoon. I'm not here to make my honeymoon isn't to make friends. No thanks, I'm good. And so I was like, bow out. And now I'm like, they would never catch me with a sting like that. In like a here's a group of strangers who are actually undercover police officers. And they're like, hey, once we get to the resort, do you want to go have dinner? I'd be like, no. And then they'd be like, what are we gonna do now? Pay her to have sex with a sex worker. And then I say no. And then they're like, well, then what? I don't
I
know.
don't know.
I don't know how they're gonna get me. They're not going to get me for anything.
You also haven't committed a crime, so you're fine. I still
Right.
love that
Right.
I love that the big takeaway of this from you is
Mhm.
see, my instinct to not hang out with strangers paid off, so I'll never do it again.
I mean, who knows what would have happened to us if we what made
What would
friends?
have happened? Yeah.
Again, I
Hey,
stand by. Look, were they lovely and like very pleasant and all of that? Sure. But do I stand by honeymoons aren't for friendship? Yes. I wasn't there to make friends. I wasn't. I was there to eat the most glorious cheese fries of my life. And basically, room, beach, fries, just in that same cycle. That's it. That's what I was there for. Not buddies, not pals. No thanks.
I think some people just they need to take breaks from all the boning, so they're like, let's just talk to other people for an hour, you know?
And then that's the thing. That's what I've got him for.
That's beautiful.
Yeah. Oh, I say it all the time. I'm like, after you, he's my next best friend.
Oh, come on.
Because I'm like, I'll hang out with him all the time. Sure, why
Yeah.
not?
Yeah.
But also, I don't think I've really fully described those cheese fries.
I forgot about them.
I dream about them often. That was and I know people don't want to hear it. That was the highlight of my honeymoon.
Well, it wasn't the company. Um,
He would probably agree. The cheese was exceptional.
listen. Well, bringing it back to the death. Um, I will just say, obviously, I know we're fixating, or I'll speak for myself. I'm fixating on the sting operation, but I think it's just
Mm.
because it's so egregious
Oh, it's
and
insane.
so sad that they, in my opinion, misused so many resources. And at the end of the day, Helena, her death is unknown. The case has been closed. It will likely never be solved, and that's awful.
Yeah, maybe put like a few of the hours you were putting into that sting, maybe put that into reading the binders from the previous investigation,
Yeah.
looking into other people, like use that time for that.
Yeah. Listen, Christy Oxborrow, fantastic work as always. Thank you for taking us on this wild, tragic, and truly bizarre ride.
It, as always, is my honor.
And we thank you, dear listeners, for joining us here. If you haven't already, give us a follow on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube at True Crime and Cocktails, on Twitter at Not Detectives. If you want some bonus content, go over to patreon.com/True Crime and Cocktails to learn more about our subscription-based service over there. The only place for True Crime and Cocktails merch is, of course, truecrewmerch.com. So check that out as well if you're interested. And my next single, FAFO, is available for pre-save now. So go to my bio, any of my socials, go to the link, and you can pre-save the song now. It would be much appreciated. Christy, do you want to tell the people about next week's episode?
On the next True Crime and Cocktails, Sherry Papini.
That piece of shit.
Normally get a reaction about the what it is. I can't wait.
She
I
is, sorry.
barely know anything about
Oh
her. I know
boy.
such bare bones. So I can't wait for that attitude to come to me. You know,
Oh
like
yeah.
I can't wait to get there because there's
Oh, I
not a
can't
chance.
wait for the texts I'm gonna get. They're just gonna be like, this is worse than I thought.
Oh yeah. Oh boy. Well,
Buckle in.
I can't wait.
I love it. Christy, do you want to say goodnight to the people?
Oh, good night, Miranda Hillard.
Oh, good night to the pet psychic.